Today we have a hand for PokerNews.com from one of my favorite poker video bloggers, Rampage Poker. He gets in there, he battles, he rampages the opponents with all sorts of savage bluffs, and today he has aces. And when a rampager gets aces, they usually win a gigantic pot. Let's see how he does it today.
Picking up aces under the gun, what a sight to see. Maybe bullet number 4 is the real lucky one.
He mentions he's fired 4 bullets into this tournament. That means he's entered 4 times. Well, some people think that that is insane. But you have to realize whenever you're playing a re-entry tournament, every single time you buy in, you're just playing in essentially what is a new tournament with a shallower effective stack because the blinds will have already gone up, right? You have to not view it as I have to get whatever 12th place to break even. Like that's not how you need to be thinking about poker tournaments. If you have an edge in the game, every time you buy in, you extract some amount of equity. And what happens in re-entry tournaments is that the good players get to play as many times as they would like, and every time a good player enters, assuming they have an edge, that edge gets extracted from the other players in the field, which results in a lot of players having a relatively low return on investment in re-entry tournaments because all the good players get to play as many times as they want, and all the weaker players play once or twice. And so that creates a ton of variance because edges are smaller in re-entry tournaments compared to freeze-out tournaments. Anyway, if you think you have an edge, you should certainly re-enter, and with 30 big blinds at a random tournament, you should be hopping in. So here we are, 30 big blinds deep with the ace and the ace. Let's go.
I open things up to 3,500 and I get the button and big blind to make the call. So once again, 3 ways to a flop of 9-5-4, 2 spades. Here with not a single spade in hand and the best pair possible, action checks to me and I decide to bet out 3,500 once again. It's about a 1/3 sized bet. And the button makes the call, big blind folds, so we're just going to a turn here, which comes a spade.
All right, slow down, Rampage. On the flop, make a standard-ish third pot continuation bet. I think that's perfectly fine, perfectly standard. It is worth noting this is a bounty tournament. I'm not sure if the bounties are actually in play yet. It doesn't matter a ton, but if the bounties are in play, I usually like just using slightly bigger bet sizes to build the pot so that I can get my stack in, either to collect my opponent's stack, or when I have the nuts, let them think they can collect my stack so that they can win a bounty, which they will not win because I have the aces. Also, in smaller and medium stakes games, I think this is a $1,500 tournament or $1,000 tournament or something like that, you don't have to use such stringent GTO bet sizes. I realize in multi-way pots, from a GTO point of view, you want to use small sizes in general, but this is a spot where I might just bet bigger because the board's a little bit coordinated. If someone has a 9 or an overpair, they're just not folding. So I think you want to bet just a little bit bigger to build the pot immediately. One thing I want to also note here is that take a look at how Rampage has his cards laid out. This is something I recommend you don't do because if these cards happen to be marked and the bottom card is the one that is marked, not that I'm saying there's anything shady at the win or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying in terms of just protecting yourself before you wreck yourself, you want to conceal your cards as much as you reasonably can. And that can mean have your cards on top of each other with your hand on top of the cards. And if the cards are marked, your opponent's going to have a very difficult time seeing it. And I mean, look at how beautiful and clean these cards are. I know a lot of casinos don't have very clean cards, but look at how beautiful and clean these cards are. If there was a little mark on these cards, you'd be able to see it no problem. And, you know, that's something you want to be aware of. And I don't know what made me think of this. I think he like put them on top and then kind of slid them back. I realize this looks cool for the video blog, but it would be really, really bad if some super sharp player, super shady sharp player, has marked the cards and they could see it because we're not covering up our cards well. So anyway, don't hide your cards, but also don't just like put them out there so all of your opponents can get a very, very clear look at them because you never know who's trying to cheat you. All right, here we go. Turns to 6 of spades. That's bad. Let's go.
Ew. Not really the card I'm looking to see as the board is a lot more straightening and obviously there's a flush out there. Not holding a spade as well, I decided to slow down and do some pot control. I check it over to him and he thinks the pot control idea is just silly and decides to bet out 7,500. Okay. For this sizing, I'm not going anywhere. Didn't check aces to fold them, that's for damn sure. I stick in 7,500 myself to match his bet. We're going to a river heads up now, hoping to just not see a spade. River comes a brick. It doesn't change the board whatsoever.
I love Rampage's check call on the turn. I think this is a spot where if you bet and get raised, it's awful. If you bet and get called, it's fine, but not great. If you check, though, you can induce some bluffs or overvalues from hands that are just trying to get a little bit more money in the pot. Maybe a hand like King 9 or something like that decides to bet because you checked and they don't want to let you draw to a spade for free. So I think this is definitely a spot to check and call the turn. Here I are on the 10. Hopefully it goes check, check, and we win. Let's see.
And I'm going to check inflow. I'm okay with him checking back, to be quite honest, with a board that we're not too proud of or not too happy with. And ultimately, he ends up going all in. Oh, man.
Oh, man. All right. What do we do here? What would you do in this scenario facing an all-in bet for the remainder of your chips in this tournament? At this point, I think we are getting odds such that we need to win something like 28-ish% of the time. I could be slightly off with that. But 28, 30% of the time, we're going to need to win. Considering that, what would you do with the ace and the ace as Rampage Poker on your fourth or maybe fifth bullet? Fourth bullet? Who knows? What would you do in this spot? Take a second, pause the video, and write in the comment section below if you would call off the rest of your stack or if you would fold and live to fight another day with almost no chips. This is a rough one. I think you just have to find a call here. It's kind of unfortunate when the 10 calls, or when the 10 comes on the river, because now if your opponent did have a 9, which is kind of likely, they are not going to shove the river. They're going to check it back. However, if they did have a hand like Jack 10 of diamonds that decided to float the flop, which maybe that does, maybe it doesn't, to be a little bit optimistic. But if they did float the flop with a hand like Jack 10 and then they decide to bluff the turn, they may go for value on the river. Obviously, that's not that likely, but it does exist. If they had a hand like Ace of Spades 10, they would perhaps float the flop. They would then maybe bet the turn, and they may shove the river. So there are some 10s available. The problem, though, is that we lose to all the flushes, and we do not block those very much at all. And a lot of players in position are going to call with all the big and medium suited connected flush cards, and those are all available. So look, I don't go around folding the aces all that often, but if there ever is a spot to fold the aces, I think this might be it, because a lot of the opponent's value hands that would perhaps overvalue are no longer going to overvalue on this river. Mainly the 9, I mean. If your opponent did have a hand like queens or jacks, yeah, they'll bet the river, but if you think that there are, 6 combinations of each of those, and they may not have 6 combinations because they 3-bet some of them pre-flop, and they're not going to bluff with a 9 or value bet a 9, and they won't take a hand like, let's say, pocket 5s and turn it into a bluff, which a lot of people won't, then that means they have either a flush or a flush draw. And the thing is that a lot of people don't get past the flop with just a flush draw. If you give them king of spades, jack of hearts, they just fold immediately. And so for that reason, I think this is actually a pretty rough one, and I would probably still call it off. But if my hand was a little bit worse, such to the point that I lost to some thin-ish value bets, like let's say I had king 9 of diamonds, I would definitely fold here. Or if I had, even if say I had river to a pair of 10s, say I had like queen of spades 10 somehow, not that you have that playing this way, but say we did a random hand like that, then I think it's probably pretty close to a fold. But I think because aces beat slow-played kings and queens and jacks, and maybe the opponent's going for thin value with a 10, I think you got to call it off and get out some more money and re-enter.
He covers me, and I have about 22,000 in stack. It has been a really frustrating day. I don't think that this player is going to be bluffing considering the line that he took.
Well, let's talk about that. If we don't think the player is bluffing, given the line that they took, what does that mean? That means they just don't have bluffs in their range to begin with, because maybe they don't float the flop in position with random overcard with spades. If that's the case, then I guess find a fold, especially if you don't think they're going to be betting with a 9, right? You really need then your opponent to be bluffing with like under pairs with a spade, and most people do not do that. They just check turn and then check river and hope to win a small pot. So if that's the case, I think we're way closer to a fold then.
And is there a way that I can ever win here with just one pair? Seems pretty optimistic at this point, but it's aces and we're early in the tournament, so we've got to put our chip stack at risk to hopefully win a big pot here. Come on, let's hold. I make the call, and he shows us pocket 9s. Top set just for him, and that's going to be good enough to scoop. We say goodbye and RIP to the $6,500 that we put into this tournament.
Goodbye, $6,500. It was nice knowing you. Such is life. Have fun. I don't mind Rampage's call, but at the same time, if you think the opponent's literally never bluffing, it could just be a fold. But it's hard to fold the aces when you're playing 30 big blinds deep, and I certainly don't fault you for calling it off. Rough one. That's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor, click the like and subscribe buttons way down there below. Also, make sure you check out Rampage Poker's YouTube channel. He does a lot of fun, aggressive, battling video blogs, and while in the process of doing all that, he somehow crushes the games. So good job, good work, Rampage. All right. Hope you get your aces a lot. To all of you, hope your aces win. Hope they don't get cracked. It's no fun to lose with aces. But if they do, just always re-enter. I'll talk to you next time.